Is monosodium glutamate, also known as Ajinomoto and Chinese salt, bad for you? Well, if you consume it like that, I'm pretty sure it's bad for you. In this video, I'm going to talk science. Is monosodium glutamate bad for you? What does the science say?
Science is the man.
Disclaimer, I am not a scientist. I'm not talking about any research that I've done myself. I'm just sharing what other actual qualified researchers and scientists have published about monosodium glutamate. MSG is a flavor enhancer, and chemically it's essentially an amino acid. There's two components to MSG. There's the monosodium bit and then there's the glutamate bit. The glutamate bit exists naturally in a lot of foods that we consume, like tomatoes, cheese, mushrooms. It exists in almost all meat forms, and it's also produced by our bodies naturally. It's also found in breast milk. So a lot of us have been having glutamates since the time we were born. Traditionally, it was made from seaweed, but now it can be made by fermenting starch or sugarcane and then crystallizing the liquid that comes out. Why is this crow not shutting up? Chup kar ja bhai, kya ho gaya? Now coming to the sodium bit, monosodium glutamate or MSG has actually one-third the amount of sodium that your regular table salt does. So the salt that you consume on a day-to-day basis has actually got 3 times the sodium content that MSG has. So this just might mean that salt might actually be more harmful for you than monosodium glutamate. So I dug through a lot of research papers to the point where I started wondering ये मैं मुफ्त में क्यों कर रही हूँ. Other than humans, obviously, there's been a lot of research regarding the negative health impacts of MSG on mice and rats. So let's talk about the research that's been done on humans first. A study conducted in 1993 found that there was no scientific evidence linking any of the alleged symptoms of headache, nausea, dizziness, etc. to monosodium glutamate consumption. Another study in the year 2000 reported that a 5-gram dose of MSG, which is by the way a really large dose, given without food just on its own, might cause a headache. However, these symptoms were not reported when people consumed MSG with food. So surprising. I'm totally surprised. I'm so blown away. A similar conclusion was derived from a study in 2009 where they concluded that if you take a large dose of Chinese salt, Ajinomoto, MSG, whatever you want to call it, on an empty stomach, then you might get a headache. You had to do research for this. Headaches were also reported in another study in which MSG was administered in the form of a sugar-free soda with different flavors. So you're saying these sugar-free soda drinks with artificial flavors in them might give people certain symptoms. Okay. In 2013, a study found that there was no correlation between obesity and MSG consumption. And a very recent study in 2017 showed that the human body cannot differentiate between glutamates that were consumed through foods in which glutamates occur naturally versus glutamates that you consume through MSG. Hence, if you're not getting any symptoms after eating tomatoes, there's a very low likelihood of you getting any symptoms after consuming foods cooked using MSG. Pollen. And there have also been some studies done to determine if MSG increases food consumption. Some research has suggested one negative impact of MSG is that it might lead people to actually eat more. What is the problem? I don't see the problem. How is that negative? A lot of the research in which they've talked about how MSG is so dangerous has actually been conducted on rats and mice. There were heart problems, fertility problems, liver problems, kidney problems, brain function problems. Everything that you could possibly think of was reported in the rats. However, in these studies, the poor rodents were given human-sized doses in their tiny rat bodies. And get this, it was not mixed in their food like they were in the human studies. This was administered to them in all sorts of horrible ways. It was injected into them either directly into their skins or directly injected into their abdomen. I can't believe this YouTube video has got me feeling sorry for rats and mice. बेचारे चूहे मार दिए यार इतने. These experiments were also conducted on a lot of pregnant female rats. Hence, it should come as no surprise that there was a lot of fetal development related issues in those poor mice.
Why the science fucking man?
So if there is no conclusive research suggesting that MSG is harmful for you, so why do so many people have very real symptoms after eating foods containing MSG? Is it all in their heads? Just because there is no scientific evidence linking there's a bee. Just because there is no scientific association between a certain food and the symptoms reported by people after consuming it doesn't mean those symptoms aren't real. So if you do happen to get headaches, nausea, or any other symptoms after consuming foods that have MSG in it, science does have other explanations for it. Firstly, a lot of foods that contain MSG also contain a lot of salt. And if you're consuming foods that have both MSG and salt, that's a lot of excess sodium that you're taking in. And salt, as I've already told you earlier, already contains 3 times the amount of sodium that monosodium glutamate does. And it could be the high sodium content because of the salt in those foods that gives you those symptoms, which are often attributed to MSG. Secondly, because MSG makes food taste super yummy, you might actually end up eating too much of it. And overeating could be one reason why you're experiencing symptoms after consuming foods containing MSG. I still don't see why that's a problem. And a third possible reason why you might be feeling symptoms after eating foods that contain MSG is called the nocebo effect, which is the opposite of the placebo effect. In the placebo effect, your belief that a certain ingredient or a certain drug might actually do you good if you consume it actually ends up doing you good, even if there is no scientific evidence explaining these results. In the nocebo effect, your belief that a certain ingredient or a certain drug will actually be harmful for you might actually end up being harmful for you, even if there is no scientific evidence for it. The mind and body work in mysterious ways. The fourth possible reason is again due to human psychology. If you know someone who felt ill after eating foods cooked with MSG, then you might believe that you will also feel sick after eating MSG, in which case you might actually end up feeling sick thanks to the nocebo effect. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. It took a lot of reading and research to make this video possible, even though it wasn't my research. I spent a lot of time reading up on research, a month exactly, because I have a full-time job and I can't do this all the time. सारा research papers खोल के नहीं बैठ सकते. एक research paper पढ़ने में इतना time लगता है और इतना jargon होता है, इतनी मुश्किल उसमें words use किए होते हैं. I read 20 research papers for this. I read 20. 20 नहीं है MSG पूरा खाने दो में. Stop undoing all the good that this world has to offer. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do like the video and do subscribe if you aren't already. I'm also interested to know, how has your experience been with MSG? Do you feel unwell after eating any food that contains MSG? Do comment below and let me know. So this video was essentially one big science lesson. If you're interested in a history lesson, you can check out part 1 of this series, in which I talk about how this controversy surrounding MSG actually started. And if you're interested in an international relations lesson, you can check out part 3 right here, in which I'm going to be talking about which countries MSG is actually banned in and which countries it's surprisingly legal in.